All right, welcome back to Weekend Dawn. The final few minutes here on the show, it's time for your artist spotlight, and we've seen born and raised in Botswana and Zambia. Sampa Tembo, aka Sampa the Great, was exposed to her cultural music early on. Having made up her mind to pursue all things visual, Sampa eventually made her way through San Francisco and Los Angeles, eventually Australia, to study audio production. Her music combines elements of African culture as well as her political consciousness, and since her first mixtape called The Great Mixtape, Sampa's released multiple standalone singles, an album called Birds and the B9 in 2017 and many features on songs and singles of other well-known artists. Now, her debut album called The Return was later released in 2019. She has just released a documentary also named after the album called The Return, and she now joins us from Melbourne, Australia. Sampa the Great, a very warm welcome to you, and thank you for joining us here on Weekend Dawn.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I mean, Sampa, you are a storyteller, a communicator, a healer through your works, and you fuse genres, from hip-hop to spoken word, amongst traditional folk chants and singing. I mean, how intentional are you about infusing all those different elements in producing the sound that you have to date?
Yes, they're all the elements of what make me me, and I think the best music is reflective of the person who's giving the music. So I try the best to be my most authentic self when giving my music away. I was born in Zambia, raised in Botswana. Around that was experiences around traditional music and sounds, and also, influenced by hip-hop and influenced by all the sounds that come with hip-hop, and trying to infuse both sounds together to, be authentically African but still be able to do hip-hop music.
Before we touch on what it means to be African for you, I mean, ahead of Africa Day tomorrow, you can't ignore the fact that you've obviously lived in various places and been very influenced by so many, along the way. I just wanted to know from you what some of the pressures or challenges might have come from you having to literally represent a country, a continent, in another country, and how you've managed to embrace that pressure.
Right. The pressure, I'd say, is still ongoing. The best I can do is, be who I am, be myself. I'm supported by my family always. The best thing I can do is be myself, represent the people and the strength of the people I grew up around, which is at home, and let that speak for me in my music.
I'm looking at the reception of The Return. I mean, what's been the reaction since you released it last year? What did you want to evoke through this album?
I wanted to show the journey that I've been on, and I wanted to show that at this point in my life, I'm not afraid to fully walk into the person who I am, and that includes where I'm from, the languages we speak, the people I'm surrounded by, and physically being at home. And it was a broad story, The Return, not just about the continent, but about the diaspora and everyone we consider, Africans or of African descent who may not feel like they belong in the continent. And just giving out that message as a Zambian who was also raised in Botswana, and knowing that sometimes it's easy to feel like you don't fit in. It's easy to feel like you have a home that you don't feel like you belong to. And I'm sure that my younger self can speak up for me when, I was raised in Botswana and feeling like I wasn't fully Zambian. And there's a whole diaspora out there that feels the same way as well. So it was a broader story to say, we are all connected even though we're not in the same place.
And then on the back of the album, of course, you've also released the documentary, also entitled The Return. I mean, just through its, success to date and how people have experienced it. I wanted to know from you, what conversations have you managed to spark through it? What conversations are you hoping to spark through it? And how has the documentary been received?
Oh, the documentary was received beautifully. I actually did a premiere through YouTube and just had a live chat. As people were watching it, we got to experience it together. I got to just point out certain things. Oh, that's my mom, guys, or this is the high school I went to in Botswana and Gaborone. And it was just beautiful to be able to share that part of my life with people around the world, and just a testament to what the music can do. And again, the talks of the diaspora have sparked up just people being like, I really thought this, nobody feels this way, and you've been able to voice this out. I've been looking for a place of belonging because I don't really quite fit in where I am. And that's the broader subject matter that the return has for people. And just, feeling like you want to, belong to yourself as well, and just, finding your true self and the self-love that comes with that, and feeling whole. So many people have actually just, messaged me separately and given in their feelings about the return, and it's been some heartwarming messages.
Speaking of belonging, speaking of things of identity, I mean, we're looking at Africa Day tomorrow, and in lieu of this, questioning what the significance of the day means for Africans, the African diaspora at large. Is it still significant? I mean, what is your take on the memorable day?
Oh man, it is a moment right now that we have to look at the continent, especially in light of the pandemic that we're facing, and just how Africa is seen on the global, on global space. I was just talking to my sister yesterday, and she was like, some of these rules made for the pandemic, they don't cater to Africa. And why is that? We're always seen as, the last resort. And it just further brings back the conversation of Africa for Africans, and knowing that no one else is going to care about Africa but Africans. And we have to start that conversation first within the continent and then abroad. And that's a reminder that has to continue happening every Africa Day, but even any day of the year, really, about how to strengthen, the connection between us as Africans. And I think that's still important.
Sampa the Great, I'm going to have to let you go. Just before I release you, though, I wanted to know from you, during these unprecedented times, how has COVID-19 impacted you? How have you also managed to mitigate against some of these challenges and rework your modus operandi?
Right. Just creatively, it took a while to be re-motivated, honestly. Just seeing what's happening on a global level. Myself and my sister are residing in Melbourne right now, but the rest of our family is in Botswana, and just having that anxiety of, are they okay? What's going on there? Is everything taken care of? And just uncertainty really took hold of me, and my creativity kind of paused for a minute. But now, listening to more music, creating more, taking time to, we may never get this opportunity globally to pause for a second and look at the inner and rework the directions that we've all gone. But also, it's been a way to see the grand scheme of things and how we all are connected in this way, like we are all stopping at this moment, and that's kind of not been an option for me.
Oh, it would be interesting to see what comes from the time you've had during COVID-19 and beyond. Thank you so much for joining us. That was rapper and songwriter Sampa the Great, joining us all the way from Melbourne in Australia, just chatting to us about her illustrious journey to date. And